Hello everyone, this is In-Game Arthur doing the boxing of the offline party game review. This is Dark Souls Remaster for the PlayStation 4, but being played and tested on my PlayStation 5. To jump right into it, this physical copy here just claims it's just the base vanilla version of the game, so the on-disc version is 1.0. Now sadly there was an update available. This update size was 170 megabytes big and will take you to version 1.03 since the time making this video. Now like always, I play all my games completely offline with an unregistered account, and I didn't experience any massive game-breaking bugs or issues, and as well I was still unlocking trophies with my unregistered account. Now this is the remastered version of Dark Souls. Dark Souls originally came out on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. This is a remastered version where they enhance slightly the graphics. I don't think it's as enhanced as some people really hoped it was going to do, but overall it is a bit sharper in terms of quality of graphics, as well as this remastered version does include the DLC that got released previously, so that DLC content is on the disc, and all prior updates before this release is on disc as well. Now you're probably wondering about the 170 megabyte update. I can't really say what exactly it's fixing because I didn't experience any bugs or issues. Can't say everyone's experience is going to be identical to mine, but you do need to keep in mind this is a game that has an online function that got added to it, not specifically this PS4 version, but when the game came out with the DLC, that DLC came with like some PvP mode and stuff like that, so maybe this bug fixes could be mostly focuses on the online aspect than specifically the offline, just single player experience. Now I'm not going to say you're not going to experience any bugs or problems or hiccups, but I didn't experience anything that prevented me from progressing. Now, this isn't my first time playing Dark Souls, but this has probably been a very long time since I've played it. It's got to be close to a decade, 10 years, around that point since I last played it. Because I know I never played the PS4 version. I only played the PS3 version. And so it was really interesting to finally come back to it, and simply I just had a blast. This was a really breath of fresh air for me. Not saying like a whole new experience, but just something I could just sit down and just thoroughly enjoyed it, and that's what happened. I had a smile on my face the entire time I played it. Not one moment was boredom or frustration. It was just pure fun. Now, I do have some minor gripes and issues, and some of these gripes I've talked about multiple times from software games, specifically their Souls-likes. But overall, the experience was nearly flawless. I had so much fun. It just brought a new vigor into me to play more video games. But there's a few things I do want to point out. First off, in the customization, I do kind of maybe recommend before you go into the game, go into options and customize the controls. To jump in this game, you have to hold the circle button and then press the circle button again as you're holding it. So you got to let go and immediately tap circle to get the character to jump. I find this a little cumbersome and not as on point, but thankfully the game's L3 button is not being used at all in the game. I highly recommend just going to the options, go in the controller mapping, and change the jump to L3. You still have to hold circle and sprint and just push a button to jump, but instead of having to let go of circle and press it, you can just hold circle and then push L3 and she'll jump. I find this a lot more accurate in terms of being a little bit more safer and jumping and then have to let go of the circle button and repress it. Now, the only real issues I had was that I did have one or two times an enemy fall through the ground. It's like after I hit them or smacked them or they started sliding because it got right out of physics, they get clipped into a corner. I did have one enemy who had an item clip to the ground and just fall. Thankfully, none of this was like key items or anything like that, so I don't know if it was anything important, but it didn't after he fell to the ground, it didn't immediately give me the item or anything like that. So that was a little concerning. I didn't have anything that prevented progression issues with that, but it happened once or twice throughout my entire experience of the game. As well as that, I did have some camera clipping, sometimes where the camera could get a little wonky and try to having objects block my view, so it makes it a little harder to see. That got a little annoying at certain moments. Didn't happen as much as I thought it would have happened when it first happened, but thankfully it didn't happen too much in my experience, but I could see some people getting a little frustrated with that. As well as that, I know some might say this is game design, but I don't agree with it. But there's a few times that like a little bitty ledge or a little bit of rock or a little bitty board is sticking up, and that completely blocks my character from moving. Like I can't move forward anymore. It's really frustrating because even sometimes rolling or even jumping will block it, or then you have to roll to get over this little bitty hump in the wood, or this little pebble of a rock or cliff or anything like that. That came occasionally annoying to get running along and all of a sudden this little bitty clip up of the ground and now I can't progress forward anymore. That was a little annoying at certain moments as well. As well, I do want to point out the game does run at full, smooth 60 frames per second. I didn't experience any slowdown whatsoever, not even in Blighttown, which is where it was atrocious when the game first came out. The frame rate really tanked during that moment in the game. But playing this PS4 version, I can't really remember how the experience is on the original PlayStation 4, but playing it on my PlayStation 5, there was no frame rate issues at all. It was a butterly smooth 60 frames experience from beginning and end, which was really nice. And that's pretty much it. Anything else I'm going to be really talking about is just some of my little gripes and stuff like that. But overall, I do want to say I did have fun. It is still one of the best, tough but actually fair action adventures games. This is the bread and butter of what started From Software's perpetual to video game fandom. But I know some people say Demon Souls is the original one, but as much as I want to agree with that, Dark Souls is what really pushed it over the edge and became more mainstream. Demon Souls has its cult following, but for a lot of people, Dark Souls is their first From Software game. That's kind of like Resident Evil. For a lot of us, we loved Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3, but for a lot of people, Resident Evil is Resident Evil 4 on PlayStation 2 or something like that. That's their Capcom. That's their Resident Evil. I just want to point that out because some people can get very defensive when this topic comes up because they hold Demon Souls higher than Dark Souls, and I can understand how some people find it annoying that Dark Souls is more popular than Demon Souls. Regardless, I love them all, so to me, I loved all of them, so it's not that important which is more popular to me, but I just want to point out this is the one that really propelled them into the mainstream. So I'm just glad to have this full, complete working version of the game on disc with the DLC and stuff like that. Now, I don't know if there's any other missing things like bonus outfits or pre-order bonuses missing that I'm not sure with, but the main stuff, the main campaign, the DLC content, and the overall experience from beginning to end is all on disc, and that's what really matters. Now, again, this is going to be contentious. I've talked about this multiple times. Now, I am disappointed that this remaster didn't include more accessibility features, like maybe some settings and stuff like that to make experience a little bit more better for people with disabilities. Or, I've griped about this before, I disagree with people when they say that From Software games do not need difficulties. It should just be one difficulty. I disagree with this. I believe all games should have accessibility and difficulty options and sliders and stuff like that for letting people play the game how they want to play their games. So it is a disappointing that the game doesn't have like an easy mode, and I will even say it's a little disappointing it doesn't have a hard mode. I know people are going to probably complain and say that hard mode is when you beat the game. I shouldn't have to beat the game to unlock a next higher difficulty. Because personally, since I still somewhat remember Dark Souls, I actually find it a little bit easy. I beat most of the bosses on my first try, and the only times I really died is when I forgot about like a fall or a little jump out spook moment, if you will. But overall, I didn't really have too hard of a time with the experience. It's just funny that back then we considered this game hard, and now it's like, since we're so veterans with the From Software formula, coming back to this one's definitely like, this one was pretty lenient in terms of its difficulty compared to the newer ones. But I still stand by that a game should have easy mode. Now, why I'm pointing this out is that even the PC version, there are mods to make the game easy, and they have options to let you change how difficult you want that on the PC. And I was really happy to read some people really thanking people for the mods because they couldn't get through the game, and after they got the hang with an easier difficulty, then they got more comfortable reading the comments and how they were able to raise the difficulty. That's the stuff I'm talking about. People can eventually grow and learn. They just can't be thrust into the deep end of the pool and expecting to know how to swim. That's why I don't mind difficulty options. Let people approach games how they feel the most comfortable, and then they can eventually advance into not only to the base difficulty, but higher difficulties. That's why I'm always standing for that. As well as that, again, I've talked about this multiple times, I didn't like how the game doesn't have no quest log or some kind of information to help me guide me in terms of side quests or knowing where a character is going or where I can find them so I continue their quest. Frankly, I don't think I've completed this any time I've ever played a Dark Souls game. I don't know if I've ever completed someone's side quest, because I don't know where they are. I don't know what they expect me to do or what orientation they expect me to do stuff to complete their side quests, because there's no information. I find that a little frustrating and annoying. I should not have to leave the game, like look at a strategy guide or look online and then walk through to figure out how to help people in their side quest stuff. That irked me a little bit, and it still irks me now, even with this new Dark Souls. But for me, it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed myself. I'm glad to have this physical copy. I'm glad to finally sit down and cover it, because I realized I've never covered Dark Souls, the first one, on my channel. So this is the first time for it. And I'm glad that I got to play basically the superior version of the game. The fully remastered, fully working, works just fine on my PlayStation 5. And with the DLC and pretty much all the updates, other than that 170 megabyte update, which I'm fairly confident it's mostly online focused stuff, but I'm not going to say they're going to fix a few minor things. But overall, obviously, this is a well worth physical copy to pick up. It's not the perfect physical copy because it has still at least some update, but overall, it is a must pick up to add it to your collection. So like always, thank you all so much for watching. I will try to leave links down in the description if you're instant copy. Like I said, I highly recommend it. It's one of the best and well-known it's actually a JRPG technically. So then you have to check it out. It's well worth it. If you are having difficulty times with it, since this is not the PC version, I do recommend checking out Spears. Spears are extremely powerful in pretty much a lot of the From Software games. They give you distance and range, and they have good power, and they got good range of damage. You can usually hit multiple people at one time, and since there's small corridors everywhere, it helps a lot in terms of corralling the enemy on one path, and you can just poke at them. Especially, you can even hold up your shield at the same time as you poke. So just recommend advice if in case you are having a hard time to keep that in mind. Look into using spears. They are a big help throughout the experience of the game. So like always, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next unboxing video. Bye-bye!